Welcome to the Vegan Family Kitchen podcast. I am here today with Elaine Perlman, and we are going to have an amazing conversation about not only all things plant based eating and all the beautiful things it does to our bodies and the rest of the world, but we're also going to talk about kidney health, about kidney donations to strangers, and a whole universe of beautiful things we can do for each other as compassionate beings that you may not have thought about before. And so I'm warning you, this episode may blow your mind in many different ways. So welcome to the Vegan Family Kitchen podcast, Elaine. It's so wonderful to have you.
I am so excited to be here and to speak with you. It's really an honor.
It's wonderful. So let's start from the beginning because you and I crossed paths through Victoria Moran's Main Street Vegan Academy. And so let's start with the plant-based angle, though worry not, we will come to the kidney health aspect. So tell me a little bit about your plant-based eating journey.
Yeah, I would love to. So, back in 2015, I was beginning a job with the Coalition for Healthy School Food, and they asked me to take Dr. Colin Campbell's Cornell University plant based certificate course. At the time, I was an omnivore, and I thought an incredibly healthy omnivore and very into cooking. I took the class, and on the very last day of the class, I remember I closed my laptop and I said to my husband and my son, "We're vegan now." And they both said, "Okay." And I couldn't believe what an easy sell it was, but I was the primary cook and they sort of said, "Let's do this." And so from there, I taught about plant-based eating in 4 different public schools in New York City. So in the South Bronx, in Crown Heights, in Harlem. And I was teaching primarily second through fifth graders. I loved the job. We would make snacks at every class visit. The students were very open to learning about plant-based eating, and I felt very just good about sharing this knowledge not only with their with the students, but also with their teachers and their parents and grandparents. And so it just launched me into this universe of eating very healing foods. From there, I became a mentor with Plant Powered Metro New York. I helped them with their 21-day jump starts. I've mentored groups of people who are interested in eating so much healthier that they are giving up salt, oil, and sugar, as well as exclusively a plant-centered diet. And I've worked with them with different groups, like for people who have heart issues or people who have diabetes or young families, all kinds of different groups. I've done that 9 times. And then I thought, well, let me coach. Let me become officially a vegan coach. So I signed up for Victoria Moran's class and became a certified vegan coach. And that's when I interacted with you. You came to speak with us, and it was really magical. And then I reached out to you, and we had a great conversation after.
Here we are. So what you described, that job you had with, is it Healthy Eating Coalition? Is
The
it
Coalition for Healthy School Food.
Healthy School Food? So I I don't want to say that I'm in disbelief, but this is amazing that an organization that is welcome into schools would have it as their prerequisite for their educators to take the plant based nutrition certificate. Tell me a little bit more about those amazing people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that I can hardly imagine if I was to go in the school system here in Vancouver to give workshops about healthy eating. And Vancouver is, very vegan friendly, plant friendly, progressive, mostly sometimes kind of city. And I'm pretty sure that would not necessarily fly, right? So what is going on in New York City? And I know you also have a predominantly plant-based mayor, so enlighten me on what's in the water in New York.
Yeah, so I actually campaigned for our plant-based mayor for 2 years prior to his election because I knew that he would make such good progress in getting the city to become more plant-centric. However, yeah, the organization, the Coalition for Healthy School Food, predates Mayor Eric Adams' tenure. It is founded by Amy Hamlin and Kelly Wind. They're both heroes in the plant-based movement. They created this coalition that is active throughout New York State. And they've been really the movers and shakers behind our Meatless Monday menu that is in all government, anywhere where someone's getting food from the government. So for incarcerated people, for government employees, for students, we have Meatless Mondays. And then we moved into Plant-Powered Fridays. And so the Coalition for Healthy School Food was really behind persuading leaders that this is the good direction to go in. They also have, I think, plant-based alternatives every day of the week in New York City schools now. Not only that, we have in all city hospitals, the default meal is a plant-based meal. So it has gone very far, and we are now running those 21-day jump starts with Plant Powered Metro New York for hospital employees. So one of my mentoring opportunities was working with people who work in the city hospitals. So yeah, it is just really a joy to be connected with people who are doing such great work. And I think it's important to know that when I went in to teach in the schools, that my salary was being paid by those who were donating to the coalition. We were not asking the schools to pay me. So that was an important part in them saying yes to this opportunity to have this nutrition teacher come in. I just want to also share that the students were really open to the message, the teachers not so much. And I remember a teacher in the back of the classroom loudly opening a Coca-Cola and a giant bag of chips while I was teaching. But by the third class, she was saying, wait, what did you say about high blood pressure? I've got high blood pressure. And suddenly these teachers were also listening to the message, but it took a little bit of time.
Wow. I mean, it's just so wonderful to know, and it brings me so much hope and energy and renewed belief in the future that there's obviously some, as you mentioned, movers and shakers and people who are working very hard as activists behind there, but it's working, it's moving along, and that is such amazing progress. And we could have an entire separate conversation to talk about how we could replicate this, but I'll just say that I'm excited. I'm grateful. I'm really thrilled to know that this is happening. And speaking of something big that's happening, let's backtrack a little bit and to talk about the kidney donation aspect. So you are a kidney donor. You've given one of your two kidneys. It's important to remember we do have two and we really only need one, but I'll let you speak more to that. And you've given a kidney to a stranger. Let's start at the beginning. Why would anyone in their good mind do anything like that?
It's funny you say that because it's only really been open to people for the past 20 years. Because prior to that, the medical community thought anyone who would want to give their kidney to a stranger must be a bit nutty. And so they were forbidding people to do this. But eventually they did a psychological evaluation for people who stepped forward wanting to donate kidneys and realized that for the most part, we're super sane. So that's a good vote of confidence. My journey started when my son, he was 17 years old, said, hey, Mom, I'm going to donate my kidney to a stranger. And I said, that sounds like the most dangerous thing a person can do. And he was ready with all of his evidence. So he was on the debate team at the time and just told me it's much safer than giving birth. It's safer than having your appendix out, which I had my appendix out not too long before that. And he shared with me how life-giving it is and how desperately needed kidneys are. So after a little bit of time where I adjusted my thinking, I said to him, well, if all goes well, I'll do it too. At age 19, my son donated his kidney and I did 6 months later. So that's where it all started. So I was following in my son's footsteps, which is kind of poetic.
That is very beautiful. Well, first of all, your husband and son going vegan overnight just because you told them that you would, and then your son taking you into this other journey of compassion and generosity. I find that really awesome. What triggered him, though? I mean, not. I guess the average teenager doesn't think about donating a kidney.
Yeah, well, he read an article by the journalist Dylan Matthews. He writes for Vox. He recorded his journey in donating his kidney to a stranger, and that alone persuaded my son to make that choice. An interesting sort of circle is that Dylan was inspired by Josh Morrison, and Josh Morrison is my current supervisor. I'm the executive director of Weightless Zero, and Josh founded Weightless Zero. So Josh is sort of the grand poobah of kidney donation who's inspired so many people.
It's coming full circle. I just love this. So, can you share a little bit more about the process of donating a kidney to a stranger? How does one even get started thinking, yeah, that sounds like a good idea? But, and I'll assume we're going to talk about the process in the United States. I know there's similarities in Canada. I just want to highlight, I'll put in the show notes that my friend Elise Desaugnies, who is just a fantastic all around cool person, has written an article in French that I published in English about how she donated her kidney to a stranger that's in Canada. And so that will give some more background there. So I'd love to hear the story of your donation journey in the US.
Sure. Well, for it was fortunate for me in that I was there during my son Aby's entire experience. So when I was getting ready for it, I knew what to expect. And it's not very surprising in that the transplant professionals want to make sure that any kidney donor is not going to suffer afterwards from having only one kidney, right? So they want to make sure that I wasn't likely to develop a chronic disease, that everything checked out. And so you really need to be in absolutely top health in order to be approved for donation. And because they're not taking any chances, they're very conservative, and I support that entirely. It's not just a physical checkup, it's also a mental health checkup. So let's imagine that I wanted to give my kidney to my brother. In that case, it's sort of an understood thing. Oh, that makes sense. You love your brother. You're going to give him your kidney. There's not a big psychological evaluation behind that, but they do an extra level of psychological scrutiny to make sure that the candidate is in top mental health. So they have more than one professional speak extensively with anyone who wants to give their kidney to a stranger. So as I said, scrutiny is good. Within the testing of to make sure that internally everything is good in good shape, I was required to have a CAT scan, though I now believe that donors should request an MRI instead. It's a more expensive exam, but you don't have the radiation exposure, so that's important. At the time, I wasn't aware of that. In addition, an X-ray, EKG, sort of a stress test was needed. In my case, because I'm on the older side, my son didn't need to have a colonoscopy and obviously a mammogram. I needed both of those. And then you need to have your urine collected for 24 hours. They take a good look at that. And a lot of blood work. And the final exam is a renal exam where you have to drink kind of a gross milkshake. And then they check to see your renal function. And that's how they decide which kidney to take. And it all was done in a day, with the exception of the renal exam and the urine analysis, because I think that's kind of perhaps unique to some transplant centers, and maybe it's a New York City thing. They just want to make it so that you can get it all done. Other transplant centers take multiple days for the testing, but in order to qualify, you need to have virtually no issues. There are organizations in the United States that for free will help anyone lose weight in order to donate, or stop smoking in order to donate, which is super. That's a program out of University of Chicago called Project Donor. But for the most part, if somebody has any kind of chronic disease, they're going to be disqualified. And that's a really big problem, because out of 100 people who step forward to donate, only 2 wind up donating. And part of it is because so many get medically disqualified. They estimate that fewer than 1/3 of Americans would be eligible to donate due to the high numbers of diabetes and other heart issues and other things that stop them from qualifying.
And then we're back to the plant-based eating that could
Exactly.
definitely help all of those people become qualified donors, because it's unfortunate that so few people are qualified donors, but we wouldn't want their kidneys if indeed this is a problem. So definitely something that we need to continue working towards, just a healthier population at large.
Yeah, my son donated at age 19, as I said earlier, to a 21-year-old, and they met on the set of Good Morning America. It was very emotional. And then afterwards, I said to Chris, the recipient, hey, you got a vegan kidney inside of you. That's an extra healthy kidney. That's going to give you a lot of mileage. So there is, in general, living kidneys last twice as long as deceased donor kidneys, which is
Oh,
great. And it sort of makes sense if you think about it. But deceased donor kidneys last 10 to 15 years. Living kidneys last 20 years or longer, but there is one that's lasted 52 years and it's still going, and it was from a 20-year-old donor. So my hope is that Chris will have Aby's kidney for the rest of his life.
oh, I have goosebumps. This is so cool.
Oh,
I I love this idea of sharing, and sharing the love. And I was listening to you. I was thinking, well, the vegan kidney from a healthy plant based person comes with a lifetime warranty. But
yeah.
um, is there a little part of you? I have to admit, there's a little part of me that thinks if I'm going to give you a kidney, you better take care of it. Is that something that ever crossed your mind?
No, and it's a funny thing. I've been asked by people, what if you didn't like the person who got your kidney? What if it was a mean person? And I believe that mean people deserve to live, right? And people who are reckless with their health also deserve to live. So I chose not to meet my kidney recipient. My kidney actually launched what's called a kidney chain. My kidney flew to Georgia from New York City. And in order to receive that kidney, they had to have someone else donate on their behalf. And so then another kidney flew to Oklahoma, and two more went to Washington State. And so four people wound up getting kidneys because of this beautiful kidney chain. The reason I don't want to meet the person is because I like strangers. I like all people very much. And I just like the idea that perhaps I've already passed my former kidney on the street. It's sort of like a fairy tale. I just gave it out into the world, and I hope it's doing beautifully well. I don't really need the details.
I appreciate that. Well, speaking of questions that people ask, what other questions? Because you're serving as a mentor for prospective kidney donors. What's on people's mind? What are the important questions that need to be answered?
Well, so I am a mentor with the National Kidney Donation Organization, and actually, one of my mentees is donating today. So it's like a holiday for me. But yeah, and she's a non-directed donor, meaning her kidney's going to a stranger, which is very exciting. But I think that a lot of people are worried about the risk of donation, and I just recently wrote an article with Thomas Kelly stating that donation has become even safer than it was earlier reported. So donation is, as I said, much safer than childbirth, much safer than an appendectomy. And also, I think that people are concerned about what would happen if I gave a kidney and then one of my loved ones would need a kidney. So at least if you work with a National Kidney Registry hospital in the United States, you get prioritized as a donor for a living kidney transplant. If you don't work with the National Kidney Registry, you get prioritized for a kidney. Could be a deceased kidney, could be a living kidney. But in my case, because I gave to a stranger, I essentially put a kidney into the system. I'm then allowed to take a kidney out. So I could list 5 family members or friends as people who would be eligible. One of them could be eligible for a kidney if they ever needed one. And again, that would be a living kidney. So it's kind of like kidney insurance, right? I'm protected as well as my loved ones if it's ever needed, which is super unlikely. Because yeah, we're all vegan. So everyone on my list is vegan who is now eligible for
and
kidney.
and you're not just vegan, but you're very healthy vegans. And I okay, we'll park that for a little later, but I want to go back to the healthy vegan thing. I think you have some really great ways to talk about how the food we eat fuels our body and does us good or not, unfortunately. So we'll go back to that. But I think that's the key here. It's not just that we're smug about being vegan and being like super healthy, but it's putting in some effort to eat really good food, not just any
Exactly.
food, not just vegan
Yeah.
donuts all day long. Though I love vegan donuts. If anybody wants to send me vegan donuts, they can. That's wonderful. I will share them. I will have a few bites. But yeah, not every single day, all the time. So going back to the kidney donors, what are the needs? What needs to be done for this to become mainstream? Because as you say, there is very low risk done to healthy people, obviously, and there's a lot of care that's put in by the physicians. Do no harm, I think, really applies here first, where we really there's this a big effort to make sure that the donors are healthy in every way. um, we only need one kidney. There's these incentives about the kidney insurance, as you mentioned, for our loved ones that could one day perhaps need a kidney. So, what else needs to be done for this to become more mainstream? Because I believe there's a lot of people that could use a kidney today.
Absolutely. So we have about 90,000 Americans on the kidney wait list. And I think globally, there's a long kidney wait list in nearly every country. And we have a shortage of living kidney donors. Just to give you that some data on it. We have, for the last 24 years, 6,000 living kidney donors on average every year. That number has not grown, even though the number of people who need kidneys has more than doubled over that period of time. So we have a shortage. Most kidneys come from deceased donors. And we have that 6,000. So there are about 21,000 in the United States that come from deceased donors last year, about 6,000 from living donors. And within the living donors, most of them are giving to their loved ones. Only 300, and last year it was 400, gave kidneys to strangers. So it's a really, really small number. And I think the total number of people who've given kidneys to strangers in this country of nearly 400 million people is about 4,000 people have given their kidneys to strangers. So a lot of people don't know it's a possibility. And even when they find out it's a possibility, a lot of people just don't want to do it. And I understand why they wouldn't want to do it. It is a surgery. A lot of people fear surgery. For some reason, I am disgusted by anything medical, but I don't fear surgery and I don't fear pain. By the way, I just want to mention, because that is one of the big questions, is how much does it hurt to donate a kidney? And it hurt way less than childbirth and way less than my appendectomy. So it was more like tightness than pain, because I had really good pain management. And I took my next pain pill 5 minutes before the last one wore off, which was my surgeon's advice, which put me in a better place than my son, who had a bit of a harder recovery because he was sort of trying to stretch out his painkillers. You know, everyone's afraid to become an addict, but I think that it's just important to know that the pain medicine is there for a reason at the beginning, and then you need fewer painkillers, and if you do keep up with the dosage.
It's just a couple
Yeah.
weeks on painkillers, right?
Oh,
Is it even that long?
not even. So I was in the hospital for 3 nights, but usually people are in the hospital for 2 nights. I live in a 5-floor walk-up, staircases to get up to my place. I was able to go up by the 3rd day with no issue at all. I was off the serious painkillers after 5 days, and I transitioned then to extra strength Tylenol. And I think by the 12th day, I was off painkillers entirely. So
Okay, yeah.
yeah, for the serious painkillers, it was a very short period of time. Yeah, so we have these about 300 people, 400 people every year who give kidneys to strangers. Many people cannot afford to donate in the sense that all of the medical costs are covered, but there's travel time, there's time off work, there's elder care and child care depending on the donor's individual situation. And so donation can become quite expensive. And I recently looked at the data, and it looks like most donors are middle and high income. And one of the reasons is because low-income people often are less healthy because of a lot of factors
Right.
go into that. And so they're less likely to qualify to donate. But they tend to be the people who need the kidneys the most, the low-income people. So low-income people are 3 times more likely to be on dialysis, 3 times less likely to be transplanted than a person who is a high income or a high education individual. In reality, the government tracks it as according to education, which we know often tracks with income. So the idea is, let's provide an incentive for people to give kidneys to strangers, because when you give a kidney to a stranger, you're giving that kidney to a person who is at the top of the wait list, most likely to die from the kidney shortage because they've been waiting the longest. And we lose about 1,000 people every month from the wait list who either die directly from the wait list or become too sick to be transplanted, need to be removed from the wait list and die quickly thereafter, right? So let's incentivize. We've got this idea. A few of us who gave kidneys to strangers came together and came up with this idea. Let's provide for any American who steps forward to donate their kidney to a stranger with a $50,000 refundable tax credit allocated over 5 years. So that's $10,000 a year for 5 years. And sometimes people hear this idea and they think, wow, that sounds like it's really going to be predatory against poor people who are going to just run out to donate their kidneys. And the reality is that you cannot just walk into a transplant center and say, take my kidney. It usually takes about 6 months and sometimes even longer to get evaluated and okayed for the surgery. And then you have the surgery itself. And then you wouldn't be able to access the first $10,000 until the following tax year. And if you didn't want to take it, or if you wanted to donate it, that would be your own prerogative. But the fact is that we know that when we incentivized people to donate plasma, we didn't have a plasma shortage anymore. And actually, it's now our 10th biggest export in the United States because it's so needed by countries that ban payments. And it's so important to have an adequate plasma supply. I believe that kidneys is the same. We need to have an adequate supply to save the lives of people who will die otherwise.
And we're talking about a lot of people currently on those wait lists. You're saying 90,000 people on the wait list.
Yeah.
A question I haven't asked you yet is, how does one end up in a situation where they need a replacement kidney?
So the thing about kidneys, I've fallen in love with kidneys. I think when I when I first heard about kidney donation, I just thought they were these cute little vacuums. I didn't really know how magical they were. Now I'm just really in awe of the kidney. And I was listening to a kidney doctor say, I always thought the brain was the most important organ, but who was telling me that, right? So the kidney is super important. The thing about them is that they work around the clock, without rest, until they fail. And they often don't show any signs they're on their way to failing until they fail. And so 60% of people who develop kidney failure only find out in the emergency room. They call it crashing onto dialysis. So we have right now 800,000 Americans with kidney failure. That number is going to go up to 1 million by 2030. 60% of them, so 480,000 of them, only found out they had kidney failure when they got to the emergency room. They were put on emergency dialysis, and then they get hooked up to this machine 12 hours a week, 4 hours at a time for three days a week, until they can find a new kidney or until they pass from kidney failure. So it is catastrophic. How does it happen? For the most part, the biggest drivers are diabetes and hypertension. But a lot of people I know have kidney diseases from genetic diseases. So it varies, but definitely the reason that the growth in the rate is so dramatic is because of the way people are eating.
What are the symptoms that bring them to the hospital? What happens for them to find out?
Not too long ago, I was at this event and they had virtual reality. So I basically was a person who fell on the street, was brought into the ER through the virtual reality experience and hooked up to emergency dialysis. And it was a horrible experience, even though, I knew it wasn't real, but I felt sort of in that place. For the most part, it's pain, right? Pain around in the kidney area brings them to the ER. And then, in reality, people can really monitor their kidney health by asking their doctors to check their kidneys at their annual physicals. I am astonished that doctors do not just do this without being asked for the most part. So we need to have our GFR and our creatinine checked, as well as protein in our urine. I was talking to a man who had stage 3 kidney disease. And I said, "You are a unicorn. I've never met anyone with stage 3. How did you find out?" And he said, "You know what? When you have stage 3, you just take a pill for the rest of your life. It never advances." But the way they found out is he was switching jobs. The nurse used the expensive urine dipstick and not the cheap one by accident. She was new. She didn't know the protocol. And they found out he had protein in his urine. And that's how we found out that he had kidney disease. 37 million Americans have kidney disease. Most don't know it because their kidney function is not being checked at their physical. And as I said, their kidney is working silently while suffering and slowly failing. So I think it's a big thing to remember. Ask your doctor to check out your kidneys and treat your kidneys as you want to be treated, right? Treat them with kindness and love and give them what they need, which is absolutely not animal foods. Kidneys despise animals. They despise dairy, eggs, and meat very deeply, and they slowly die when they're given those foods.
Let's Thank you for providing me with this transition. Let's talk about the healthy aspects of plant-based eating, of vegan eating. So what does it mean to you to live a healthy vegan lifestyle right now?
So for me at home, it's a salt, oil, and sugar-free lifestyle. And that is sort of, I want to practice what I preach, right? When I leave the house, we're lucky in New York City. We have more vegan restaurants than anywhere in the world. I do loosen my standards. I think it's almost impossible to keep them. However, I try to order the healthiest things on the menu, and I never eat anything fried because that's hot oil equals cancer, right? Hot oil is carcinogenic. And so I stay away from fried foods, and I try to stay away from the salt, oil, and sugar. At home, I love to cook. It's just about my favorite activity. So I'm always trying out new dishes. I've got some cookbooks I adore. I love scouring the internet for the latest recipes. I have friends over for dinner a lot. Most of them are vegan, but I've had people over before, and I've not told them that I was vegan, just like new friends. And they're always amazed at how delicious the food can be, because I've also taken some cooking classes in plant-based eating, which has been really rewarding. So yeah, for me, it's about having a compassionate kitchen, right? Where there's no one has been harmed in the creation of my meals. And I think it's also about speaking about it. It's very interesting that a lot of people are hesitant to speak about eating plant-based. They feel like they can come off as preachy, or it somehow turn someone off. My feeling is, perhaps it's because I spent 33 years as an educator in the classroom, is that I have knowledge that I wish I had had earlier. I'm going to provide it to whoever's listening to me. And if they show signs that they don't want to hear it, I will back off. But more often than not, they do want to hear the details. And so, yeah, I'm very loud and proud about my plant-based eating.
Let's talk about your experience as a plant powered Metro New York mentor in the Jumpstart programs, the 21-day programs. And it's so cool that there's this option that's available for people who are curious about it to go a few steps further, even if only for 21 days. I think it's a massive piece of progress and an experience that they can have. And I'd be especially curious to hear about lessons you've learned as a mentor that other people listening can steal from you to become better at mentoring or supporting their family members. I mean, I got to say, you've had it easy with your family. It sounds like it was an awesome transition for you, but I know a lot of people I work with have significant challenges with loved ones around them or other relatives, family members that are quite reluctant to embrace a transition towards healthier, more compassionate ways of eating. So tell me everything you've learned.
Well, it really depends on the context, right? So I'll just give you a quick example. Last week, I was volunteering with the Coalition for Healthy School Food at a middle school. We had a family dinner night, and we were making nacho cheese sauce. Actually, the students, the middle schoolers, were making it, blending up carrots and potatoes and all kinds of great spices. And it was at one station they were making sushi, at another one they were doing shawarma. It was just a really multicultural, beautiful, classic New York City kind of food experience. And one of the translators was a public school employee, and he said to me, "I had a heart attack. I've got no interest in eating plant based. My daughter's a vegan. Like, don't even talk to me about it." And so when we have people like that, right? I still have, I said, "Can I just say one thing? I'm not asking you to change your diet at all. I'm just asking you to hyper nourish yourself in the morning with a green smoothie. Here's how you make it delicious. Here's how you can work on it, so it can become better." And so it's just, so in that case, with someone who's very close, and telling them they don't have to change anything, but they're just adding something, it was really an easy conversation. He was so excited because he said, "I can do that." And what I suggested to him is frozen arugula, frozen strawberries, flax seeds. It's from Dr. Goldner, Brooke Goldner, who is a doctor in the US. It's her smoothie. And so that was sort of like an easy entry, right, for him. And he was totally willing to give it a go. But in my 21-day jumpstart, I already have people who've said yes to eating
Right.
salt, oil, and sugar-free for 21 days. So it's a different crowd, and so a very different way of speaking about it. I think it's very important. The key thing in being a mentor is listening more than talking, meeting people where they are, offering your support, and then trying to make it as fun as possible, right? So I think those are the key ingredients, because everyone is coming at this from a completely unique place, their own individual journey. And so for some people, they just need reassurance they're on a good pathway. For other people, they need me to look at menus of restaurants they're going to go to and help them choose which dish to order. For some, it's recipes. For some, it's just just reminding them of how good they're going to feel. if they really give this and they commit to this and give it a really good go.
Thank you for the advice. I think, as you say, the key, taking people where they are, listening. And it's when we first go, and when you went through the Cornell program, of course, the first thing you want to do is tell other people about it and bring them along. And we're all so enthusiastic. I think when we become aware and more informed, and it's true that people often are reluctant to talk about plant based eating, but there's that window at the beginning where we're like, why doesn't everybody know about this? And we can go on and on. But it is useful to remember that not everybody has gone through that process and may not be ready. People hear what they're ready to listen to, or people listen to what they're ready to hear. Anyway, it's being aware, reading the room of the audience, and I love also your advice of focusing on adding rather than removing. And I know there's a lot of people that are worried that somebody is coming for their meat, um, which is unfortunate. I'm hoping that we can focus on the more positive aspects. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I can tell if someone is very resistant. And my years in the classroom, I can read the facial expressions and the tone of people's voices. But so I just modify what I'm going to say based on that.
It pays to be aware and mindful of the audience, that's for sure. In both your plant-based work, where you're an advocate and a supporter of other people, and your kidney work is now taking even a greater, on a bigger scale, you're taking leadership in a national movement. How does one prepare for that, and what's hard about it? Because you're such a positive person, but I need to ask you, what's hard about all this, um, about, I mean, it's silly. It shouldn't be hard to encourage other people to be kinder and more compassionate and more generous. But tell me about your experience and the lessons you're learning along the way.
Well, in terms of the kidney work, I intentionally never went into anything medical. I am not a person who is just fit for that kind of work. And the big reason is because I become very sad when people are sick. And so in my work with promoting the End Kidney Deaths Act, I'm meeting a lot of people who are dying from kidney failure. I've interviewed a number of them. Many of them are advocates on my team, helping me to get this legislation to the finish line. And I just cannot get them out of my head until they are transplanted and feeling better, and then I can rejoice, right? But I just feel like really connecting with people who are dying has been a real struggle for me, and it inspires me to work harder to get this bill passed. It reminds me of how desperately needed an increase in the kidney supply is, but I just find it's very hard to recover after some of these conversations. One thing I am super excited about, it's sort of the merging of the kidney world and the plant-based world, is that I'm going to get a chance to do my first in-person mentoring with Plant Powered Metro in New York in July with people who are recent recipients of kidney transplants. So it's
Oh,
like my two
nice.
worlds are coming together. So we'll be doing the 21-day jumpstart in person in southern Brooklyn in a low income neighborhood with one of I think it's the only transplant hospital in Brooklyn, SUNY Downstate. And that's going to be a chance for me to really put into action many of my thoughts about helping people to feel good when they are dealing with kidney failure.
Such an exciting project. I'm really glad it's happening. Something you mentioned to me before recording that I'd love to hear from you in person is, you have this visualization trick that you talk about when it comes to how different types of food interact with our body when we eat them. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so in so many social movements, we talk about giving voice to the voiceless, right? That there are disempowered people, and we need to give them an opportunity to have agency and to speak on their own behalf to make a better world. Well, it's the same thing within our own bodies. We have a lot of injustice going on in that the only parts of our body that sort of get a big voice on what we choose to eat are our brains and our tongues. And we know they're connected, right? And so we have this craving for the next dopamine hit. Just like, in the old days, we saw a fruit tree on the left side and we recorded it and we ate that fruit every time we went by that fruit tree. Well, now it's the 7-Eleven and the Slurpee on the left side that we're going to go and get one. So we have this programming where we love the sweetness, the fat, and the salt. But who loves it? The part of our brain that wants the dopamine hit that we're going to get from those foods, while the rest of our body cries. It cries when we eat these foods that make it just really gums up the works and doesn't help our functioning. We want to function at an optimal level. So what I've done with the children I work with, I was for 6 years a professor at Columbia University for people who had served in Peace Corps. I helped them to become New York City public school teachers. I used it with them, and now I use it with anyone who will listen to me. And that is, picture yourself as, and of course I show my bias, picture yourself as a kidney cell. And just imagine how it feels to be getting these different foods on your membrane of your cell. Somebody put a cucumber. How does that feel? Somebody put a French fry. You need soap to get it off. It's yucky. It's gross. That's how your body feels about oils. How about a syrupy, sugary coating? Again, soap needed. And so just to tune into our logic that will demonstrate to us what are the best foods for our kidney cells, right? Our kidney cells don't have the connection to the brain that the tongue has, but they are showing through the diseases that they're getting their disappointment and distress at the foods that we're providing. So to really give voice to our different organs, our heart, our liver, our lungs, give them the food that nourishes them, give them a seat at the table of decision making about what we're going to put in our mouths.
I love this so much. And as you were talking about the kidney receiving, the bits of food, I was imagining the kidney thinking like, not again. Like this
Exactly.
person makes me work so hard and I'm sick of this, and I can't quit my
Yeah.
job because there's nowhere for me to go, literally, until
But it
you
does
die on the
quit. It
job,
does. Yeah, it does quit. It's quit for 800,000 Americans, right? It put up the white flag and said, I've just been mistreated so severely. I'm out, right? Go find yourself a new kidney and take good care of that one,
Yeah.
perhaps, right?
And in the whole years prior, in the slow decline that is invisible, it's probably like that movement of silent quitting that we've been hearing about
Yeah.
the HR people,
Yeah.
people that are doing their job, but they hate it and they're doing it, less and less basically until poof, they're gone. But in the case of the
Exactly.
kidney, I mean, they don't get a job somewhere else.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
out. And so they
They
go to
check out.
sleep.
And I talk a lot about kidneys, but heart disease is the number one killer. But all cells in our body are impacted negatively when we provide essentially really lousy fuel.
Not and let's focus again on the addition. I often laugh when some people argue with me that red wine is maybe healthy. I'm like, yeah, because for so many people it's the only fruit they consume.
Yeah.
Really.
The only time
And
they get
olive oil
apples
is
is,
the same.
yeah. Yeah.
But if you,
Apples is apple pie. Yeah. It's the only time.
yeah, so give them instead a cup of blueberries and see if they eat as
Yeah.
much blueberries as they're drinking wine, what happens, right? I mean, so there's definitely this idea of, if you're going to mistreat your kidney, at the very least, you have to give them a chance once in a while. Give them a bit of love, as you were saying. Start with the green smoothie, and there will be at least some great nourishment there. And maybe it makes you feel so much better. Then you're like, actually, you know what? I'll try to shift somewhere else, add somewhere else. And the more good stuff you add, the less room there is for less desirable foods. So I love it. Thank you.
Great.
Give
Great.
a voice to the voiceless organs.
Yeah. Exactly.
We need stickers,
Exactly.
t-shirts, and hats. I'm on it. If anybody is inspired to learn more from you, to whether it's about the kidney donation aspects, and I think anybody, I've often heard this reasoning from philosophers saying there's no real moral arguments against being vegan, but there's real life constraints, and you and I acknowledge that there's a privilege in being able to choose our foods and to cook it and have the time and learn different things. And but so even though not everybody can make it work, and then there's allergies. I have people contacting me sometimes that are dealing with so many different health related issues connected to food that it is truly a challenge. Uh, but so not everybody can be vegan, but everybody needs to support being vegan. And so many people will be right now in a position where they can't necessarily donate the kidney, whether because they have these health issues that we've mentioned earlier, or because they have time constraints in their lives and they can't take the time off, and your wonderful measures are not yet in place for them to take advantage of. But how can they continue learning, stay aware, spread the love, and support your work? So, how to connect?
Well, first, I just want to give my email address to anyone who would like to get in touch. My email is Elaine, Elaine, at waitlist0.org. And in addition, if they're interested in donating a kidney, I'm a mentor for the National Kidney Donation Organization, also known as NKDO. So you can go to their website and sign up. And then from there, you'll get a lot of information. And there is an NKDO in Canada as well. So in both of our countries, that's a possibility. It's a great support organization that provides that mentoring and that beautiful guidance through the process. A lot of people really benefit from some hand holding and some questions answered. So that's fantastic. All the mentors are donors. And then if they're interested in helping me pass the laws, they can go to endkidneydeaths.org and sign our mission statement. And then they'll be invited to our monthly meetings, as well as other opportunities to advocate for the passage of the End Kidney Deaths Act. I'm also trying to pass the Honor Our Living Donors Act. That's an important bill. It's a much smaller fix, but it's important for the low-income donor reimbursement system in the United States. Yeah, I'm happy to be in touch with anyone who's interested in those things, and anyone who wants to sign up for the Jumpstart. In my last Jumpstart cohort, I had a Canadian, so Canadians are definitely welcome. I love Canadians, and so Plant Powered Metro New York Jumpstarts, or PPMNY. Please feel free to Google those. Our next Jumpstart is in May, and it is a sliding scale, so people can certainly sign up. And if somebody can't afford it at all, they should just be in touch with me, and I'll make it happen for them that they will be able to attend. And then I mentioned the Coalition for Healthy School Food. You know, if somebody feels generous and they want to help with that movement to help young people eat healthier food and get a real education about healthy eating, they can get in touch with the coalition. So many good organizations, and it's just very, very exciting to be a part of it. And as I said, I just love it when those two worlds merge, right? So I did a plant-based hour workshop for the National Kidney Foundation, and then a cooking demo for them in my kitchen about kidney-friendly foods to bring to a summer barbecue. You know, it's just, there are so many different ways to plug in with both movements.
All of those will be in the notes below because yes, let's spread the love. And we're going to finish. I'm going to just state, like most people, my one regret about going vegan and plant based is not doing it sooner. Elaine, what is your regret about donating a kidney?
I don't have more kidneys to donate. And I really mean that. I would do it every year if I could. It is such a 95% of people who donate kidneys are very happy they did it. You know, they had a great experience. Most of the people I know who donated kidneys would do it again if we could. So I just wish that we were designed with more than one kidney. We've got one to share, but you know, perhaps we could have had five to share because there is such a tremendous need, and the surgery is really not a problem. At least it wasn't for me. It wasn't for my son, and for all of my friends who've donated. Of course, it's not for everyone, but for those who are thinking about it, please be in touch and let's make it happen.
Thank you so much for all your work, Elaine Perlman of Weightless Zero and a plant based healthy eating educator in New York City. I am honored to have had you on the show today, and I look forward very much to continuing to follow and support your work. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. This was delightful. I really appreciate the conversation.